And welcome in our CBS Sports HQ NFL analyst, Ryan Wilson. Ryan, let's start down in Charlotte with the Panthers after playing just one series all preseason, throwing only 2 passes. Sam Darnold was unleashed Friday night against the Steelers, playing the first half, completing 19 of 25 passes, 162 yards, couple touchdowns. How encouraging was Darnold's performance, Ryan?
That was a big deal, Larry, because you mentioned it. He didn't play in week 1 of the preseason, which was sort of a head-scratcher, and we saw some quarterbacks around the league that didn't play, and I understand it on some level. Last week you mentioned he only had a handful of plays and then came out. And it's not like this team is defending Super Bowl champs or went to the playoffs. They're a completely new football team with a second-year head coach and a second-year offensive coordinator. So you wanted to see what we had in Sam Darnold, and we finally got that in the final preseason week. And he looked good. Sam Darnold looked good. Now, the pushback is always this in the preseason. Well, you only played against second and third teamers. It don't matter. The guy's completing passes. He was efficient. He pushed the ball down the field. We didn't see a lot of deep throws. In fact, we only saw a handful of intermediate throws, but the ball came out quickly. He was accurate, threw a touchdown to Terrace Marshall, which is a great play. Saw this touchdown here to Robbie Anderson for a second touchdown of the first half. All encouraging signs. Now, if you want to point to some concerns, the Panthers' offensive line is a concern, and that's the reality of it. The good news is Christian McCaffrey's going to be playing once the regular season starts. Robbie Anderson just signed that long-term deal. I mentioned Terrace Marshall, the rookie who's really flashed. They have DJ Moore, so there are a lot of reasons for optimism. That defense is young and getting better, but the offensive line is a concern. The other side of the coin is that Sam Darnold looked good. So much better than where they felt like they were a year ago this time, even though Teddy Bridgewater got him off that 3-3 start. Ultimately, he was traded away to Denver, and now they traded for Sam Darnold. Got some playing time and checked all the boxes as they move towards the regular season.
Yeah, a lot of that were against 2s and 3s for Sam Darnold, but he did find his old teammate with the Jets, and that was Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson wearing the Platinum Grill Friday night, so doing some interviews on the sidelines. Let's turn our attention to Dwayne Haskins, making his first start with the Steelers and first anywhere since late last December with Washington. Haskins, 9 of 16, 108 through the air, through a pick, played the first half, and Ronnie got some work in the second half as well, including playing in the fourth quarter, that last series where he did throw a TD. What'd you make of Haskins' performance Friday night?
Well, look, he came into the game, Larry, needing a breakout performance, sort of like what we saw from Jameis Winston on Monday night. Jameis earned the first-team job, but this was a case where Dwayne was trying to play well enough to earn the second-team job ahead of Mason Rudolph. It didn't happen. You mentioned the final numbers there, 9 for 16, 108 yards, a touchdown, an interception. A lot of that came on that final drive at the end of the game in the fourth quarter against 7th and 8th teamers, if we're being honest, guys who probably won't be on the football team for the Panthers in a couple days from now. Part of that, I think, is to get on the scoreboard, maybe give Dwayne Haskins a little boost, make sure he's the number 3 guy. We like Josh Dobbs as the number 4, but he may not make the team. But in terms of winning the number 2 job, there weren't a lot of bright spots for Dwayne Haskins. Before he came back in, his stat line was 5 for 12, 38 yards, and an interception. Now, you could say the interception wasn't necessarily his fault. It doesn't matter. That's how it goes down in the book. And he wasn't going to overtake Mason Rudolph for that number 2 job. He's done some things well this preseason, Larry, but the Week 3 game against the Panthers, we didn't see a lot of that. Maybe because he wasn't playing with the ones, whatever. You don't make excuses. Sam Darnold did his thing, and Dwayne Haskins wasn't able to do his thing on the other side of the ball.
Yeah, it seems like Mike Tomlin definitely wanted to get him in there and give him every opportunity to sort of make this team with the Steelers. We'll see here in the next few days how that shakes out. Patrick Mahomes getting the start for the Chiefs last week. Mahomes had some shaky moments, Ryan. Let's be honest. Friday night, Mahomes back in midseason form against the Vikes. He was near perfect, completing 8 of 9. 117 yards, couple touchdowns. Ryan did have that perfect passer rating of 158.3. What'd you make of the former league MVP Friday night against the Skol Vikings?
We are all Bashaud Breeland, who's number 21, trying to guard Tyreek Hill. I mean, come on. You can't ask anybody to do that. I want to call out Breeland's name. It's just unfair. But you're right. Patrick Mahomes looked like MVP Patrick Mahomes. And I don't think anyone was too concerned about his up-and-down performance previously in the preseason. That's not a big deal when you're Patrick Mahomes. It is a big deal, say, if it had been Sam Darnold and he came out shaky against the Steelers in Week 3. Patrick Mahomes did what he had to do. And, you know, I go back and forth on why aren't these guys playing, and I go back and forth on why is Patrick Mahomes out there. But Mahomes said, look, I have full confidence in the coaching staff and Andy Reid. They know what they're doing. I'm out there. I'm going to make plays. I'm going to do my thing. pretend like it's a football game because that's what it is. And then when they pull me out, they pull me out. So check all the boxes with Patrick Mahomes. He looks to be okay. I think he's going to win the starting job in Kansas City, Larry. And he left that game 8 of 9 with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think he's going to be okay. Actually, on the cover of Madden, Madden 20. Last week, it was 10 of 18, 78 yards. And you start doing the math, it's like 4 yards an attempt. That is so unlike the Kansas City Chiefs. More like it on Friday night. Jets coach Robert Saleh making a late decision. He set his rookie, the number 2 overall pick, the QB Zach Wilson, who did get 4 good practices, joint sessions with the Packers and the Eagles, and he performed well during his first 2 preseason games as well, Ryan, completing 75% of his passes for close to 200 yards, couple of pass TDs. Should Wilson have played Friday night? At least gotten some burn on Friday night.
Selfishly, I wanted to see Zach Wilson play. We just talked about Patrick Mahomes perhaps not being out there because we know who he is. We don't know who Zach Wilson is other than the standout BYU quarterback who went 2nd overall. And as you mentioned, played pretty well in the handful of snaps he had in the previous 2 preseason games. This all changes in a week and a half, 2 weeks when they have their opener against the Panthers, incidentally. So who is Zach Wilson? We're not sure, but you pointed to the joint practices, and we've heard several coaches say this preseason that joint practices basically serve as real-life simulated football games. So there may not be the need to have these players play in the actual preseason games. We heard Joe Judge say the exact same thing about Daniel Jones last week. So if Robert Saleh feels okay with Zach Wilson, where he's at in terms of progress, I understand that. But selfishly, I want to see Zach Wilson spin it, just to get an idea of who he's going to be as we get closer and closer to week 1. I know why he was standing over there, but at the end of the day, he hasn't played a lot of NFL snaps, and the more he gets, presumably, the better he'll get as he moves toward that week 1 starting job.
In the preseason, completed 15 of his 20 passes. You know, a lot of coaches, they say, look, they get about 75, 80% of their work in those joint preseason practices. So we'll see about Zach Wilson heading into week 1. Ryan, let me get your biggest winner from Friday's preseason games.
It has to be Sam Darnold. Look, he didn't set the world on fire, but we didn't know who Sam Darnold was going to be in a post-Adam Gase world, and it turns out he might be on the Ryan Tannehill path post-Adam Gase, and that's great news for the Panthers. Completed the throws he needed to make, took some hits because of the offensive line. He's just going to have to speed things up. He'll get Christian McCaffrey back, but he made some great throws, and it's probably a huge sigh of relief for Panthers fans who only saw him throw a couple passes last week before not seeing him at all prior to that.
Yeah, before that, 1 of 2, I believe, 16 yards for Sam Darnold. Ryan, biggest loser from Friday's exhibition action.
I mentioned that Dwayne Haskins had a chance to come in, and Jameis Winston it up and earned that number 2 job over Mason Rudolph, and he went in the other direction, didn't do a whole lot, threw an interception before that late series against the 4s and 5s of the Panthers to get a touchdown. That means he's on the team, presumably, but he's going to be the number 3 behind Mason Rudolph and, of course, Big Ben. Didn't capitalize on an opportunity. Not entirely his fault, but, you know, that's how the NFL works sometimes.
Here's Ryan Wilson, our CBS Sports HQ NFL analyst. Ryan, thank you, and enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games. And don't forget about the Pick 6 podcast. It's Will Brinson along with his super friends. And one of those super friends, he's got superpowers. Ryan Wilson and John Breach along getting you set for week 1. All the NFL news, analysis you can get, and also in about 30 minutes. It's the Pick 6 podcast. Download, subscribe, and enjoy today.